It's a, Good evening and welcome to Wrestling Rewind. I am your host, Angel Amoroso, and this evening I am joined by my good friend and professional wrestler, Iron Man Tommy Cairo. Tommy?
Hey, what's happening?
This evening I want to get right into this because I've done other wrestling rewinds and we just kind of played videos and wrestling matches and things like that. But this past week, I was alerted by one of your posts on Facebook, and you said some things about some people and some promotions and some times and places and whatnot. I'm not going to give the whole story away,
Okay.
but this post really got to me, and it urged me to do this interview here with you. Uh, you recently received a Lifetime Achievement Award from Tommy Fierro and
Mhm.
ISPW Wrestling. And I wanted to talk all about your lifetime achievements because I think that a younger generation in wrestling doesn't exactly know the past and their history. And you are a large part of that history to have won a
Thank you.
Lifetime Achievement Award. And I just wanted to sit here and be like a sponge and absorb every detail and everything that makes up who is Iron Man Tommy Cairo from A to Z. So, what I want to do is I want to start off right away because this usually takes a long time to go with the back and forth. So, what I want to do is ask a multi-part question, and I want you
Mhm.
to just go through and answer as much as you possibly can. Don't even worry that I'm sitting here. So, how we're going to start this off is I want to know how old were you when you discovered wrestling? Who brought you to wrestling? Who was your favorite wrestler? Who made it so that you wanted to be a professional wrestler? How did you eventually become a professional wrestler? Who were you trained by?
Mhm.
While you were coming up, there were other industries that you were a part of, like bodybuilding and MMA.
Mhm.
And I wanted to really get into everything, like I said, that is Tommy Cairo and all that information. So I don't want to waste any more time. So if you can start from the very beginning, please.
Mhm. Okay. First,
I'm
let me say
sped
this. There's no one who I would rather do this with than you. There's no one I'd rather be interviewed with than you. Because of our past and because of the similarities and what we've been through, I think it makes it really special. And especially that, I won't go into the past yet. We'll get there. But anyway, this is pretty easy for me to do. But first of all, I want to tell people why did I wait this long? Why am I doing it now? Why didn't I feel the need to do it sooner? Well, my whole life, before I even got to the end where I had all these experiences, people have said to me, you should write a book. You should do this. You should do that. The reason I never did it was the only way it would be any different than what everybody else did, I'd have to hurt some feelings and I'd have to tell the truth. So I stayed away from that. But recently, what has happened is, I think due to WWE 24/7, I'm receiving requests for appearances. I'm back kind of in the mix a little bit. And after that night that I got that Lifetime Achievement Award from Tommy Fierro, that began, a little bit of a roller coaster ride that makes me feel like, okay, I'm involved in a project right now that I can't speak about. And it's very significant. And I think the only way that people who don't know me will understand why the weight of what I say is so heavy, as opposed to people out there who are unproven. We don't know their backgrounds. We don't know why they're here in this capacity. What makes you an expert? So if you're a guy that's doing one of these shows and your information is two, three times removed from the actual incident or experience, you have to ask people who give you untruths and lie anyway. So we need people who were there to speak on certain things that have been either omitted or have been changed or just leave them out. So we both know about that. We'll get to that
Exactly.
later.
You know all about
So
being left out, and
yeah,
that's exactly why we're doing this this evening,
yeah.
because there's things that
Uh,
need to be said, that the truth about some things, and not the things that people want to believe are the truth. So please continue.
okay, so I met Miranda Gordy, who is the daughter of the late great Terry Gordy, at Tommy Farrow's event, and I just felt the need to speak to her and let her know what I thought. And I thought to myself later, she doesn't know me or of me. She's probably wondering to herself, who's this guy and why is he telling me this? And what makes him think he has the right to tell me this? So that made me think, because I'm involved in this project that's coming up, I needed to clear the air or tell for the first time in its entirety, because you can only understand how much weight I have, and if you know what I've gone through and why I have the right to make an assessment or an opinion. So I'll start with this. Um, the earliest picture that I have is, I don't have it with me. It's being redone. Is a picture of me on the blanket in Florida by the pool, 2 years old, and I'm holding a bodybuilder magazine with a guy doing a lat spread on the front. My father carried the weights in the trunk from New Jersey to Florida, and in my mind, at two, that's a man. That's what a man looks like. He works out, he's strong, and it immediately made contact with my brain. Okay. My father had boxes of weightlifting magazines and bodybuilder magazines in a garage, and all I would do was go out there and read these magazines. And there was an ad. There was a little boy, oh, he looked all like this, and it said, so and so and so and so. I said, screw him. I said, who's he? I said, in my head, you know. I said, I'll be doing that pretty soon. So then you fast forward, basically, this would be considered the first, that's me as a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. At about the same time I started doing competitive weightlifting. So when you take into consideration
How old
that
were you
I
there,
began
Tommy?
competitive weightlifting, this probably
Yes.
12. And at the
Big
same
12 year
time, I
old.
was doing amateur wrestling. But yeah, I don't want to get too far ahead. So 2 years old, I'm holding up the bodybuilder magazine. My early childhood was that, well, let me get this part chronologically right. All right, so let me just tell you about wrestling. So I became a fan at 8 years old, watching wrestling from Washington, D.C., Vince McMahon's father's product. So one day, I'm watching wrestling, and it's supposed to be a tag team match between Baron Cicluna, I don't know who his tag team partner was, and who was supposedly Bruno's cousin, Tony Parisi, a.k.a. Antonio Pugliese. They're kayfabe cousins. So now they announce the match. Out comes the heels to the ring, and then they announce Antonio Pugliese, and they announce Bruno. No Bruno. So it's Pugliese and the two heels in the ring. All of a sudden, Ray Morgan, what? Wait a minute. It's Bruno. He just came in from the airport. Bruno comes with like his shirt open. He's got a tie hanging out of his suitcase, and he runs in the ring. And with him and Antonio Pugliese back to back, they clear the ring. Well, I'm screaming. Oh, my mother comes running. She goes, what's the matter? I said, Bruno. She goes, you're driving me nuts with this crap. So rather than fight me, she had my uncle, who introduced me to wrestling, take me to my first live match at 10 years old in Newark Armory to see my hero, Bruno. So, I mean, that's an amazing thing to think about. That's the catalyst for my interest. And from there, just, of course, it burgeoned. So I'll go back now to my early childhood, aside from wrestling. And all my friends thought I was nuts because we were doing matches in the yard, backyard wrestling. I named everybody, you know. Anyway,
Much like all
um,
children do.
yeah, I grew up in Belleville, New Jersey, in a very highly Italian American neighborhood. Gangsters, my neighbors were in the karting business, gangsters, you know, so that was going on all around us. Sopranos, they could have came to us for I wasn't, aka a mobster, but we did and lived the same way.
In the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Same.
So my father had a cousin who worked at Port Newark, and it was not uncommon for him to drop off boxes of goods where we would make a store in our basement. Okay. So at that point, what example did I have? To us, it was just survival. We didn't know any other way. So I lived in what we called, me and my crew, we were the cellar dwellers. And what that was, the Italian Americans bought the smallest house they could afford, the biggest house they could afford, which was small, and evidently always grew out of it. And if they happened to have, the son was the oldest, as soon as they needed more room, he went in the basement. So I had four friends. We
I
all
think
lived in
that's
the basement.
right.
Crazy.
Only now they stay too long.
Yeah, exactly. Um, okay, so all right, we were in and out of New York City before we were 18, 16. We were going in with the older guys, and it wasn't. I can't tell this story, but anyway, it wasn't uncommon for them to have you engage in things that you already. And but
Are you breaking up just a little bit, Tommy?
yeah, you disappeared completely.
Oh, I did?
Yeah, you were gone
Oh,
for a minute. Yeah, me
okay.
too. Black screen.
We're just having a little bit
All
of
right, so
technical difficulty.
at
But go on,
17,
continue.
at 17 years old, where I grew up, you got your car, and that's the last your parents. You were gone. You were off and running on your own. Um, all right, so let me just forget these notes. So at that point, I had been prompted to go to college. My parents wanted me to go. I did 3 semesters in Montclair State, and I got the hell out of there. And I just worked, regular jobs on and off, and tried to, progress the best I could without a college education. And along the way, um, okay, I'm sorry. It's got so
What
much
was your
information.
original major in college, Tommy? If you,
Psychology.
oh, okay, psychology major. All right. It
I was
splits
a
up.
psycho, so I figured
Right. Why not?
psychology, it's
It's sort of
close. So I started my union, grandfather, father, uncle, brother-in-law, me, all in the union, the electrical union. They wanted me to go in, and I just did not want to. So I remember I was living home. Our dog died, and we had to take the dog to the pound in the morning. But my father made me take a ride with him to the job first so he could get the guys set up. I walked 3 flights underground, water leaking, little flashing lights, and I said, I will never freaking do this in a million years.
Don't
Fast forward a little bit. I had to. I had no choice. But all right, so we got to go back to wrestling. So being a fan, I still liked wrestling, but I was bodybuilding at the time and needed to concentrate on that. First of all, early influence. That's my dad.
Oh, big
Okay,
guy.
that's my dad. Early influence, of course, because I told you 2 years old. I'm on the blanket with the picture. All right, and I'll give you this out of context, and we'll go back. Oh, and this is the one I showed you. So it's like a knight on his knees. It says, "There's nothing stronger than a broken man who has rebuilt himself." That's it. That's what I feel. That's how I feel. And it goes along with that is this saying, even a broken lock. Are you there?
Yeah. Oh, I'm here.
You back?
Yep, I'm
Okay.
here.
Uh, even a broken, even a broken clock is right twice a day. Think about that.
That's true.
Early picture of my family, my grandfather, me, my 2 cousins, and my uncle, who was influential in introducing me to wrestling. my late dad, and me. Look how much we look alike.
Wow.
All right. My late mom. I'm having a hard time with this.
We got it.
All right. So we were going to go to right around 1973 and me getting an award for being in the top in the Junior Olympics in weightlifting. So
Oh,
we had a guy by the name of Phil Grapaldi, who's a three-time Olympic champion, and because of that, we had a building to work out in. However, it was just a hole, and it was in a stadium underneath. Okay, I will have to get up for one picture, or maybe I won't. Hold on. I'm sorry.
no, that's
It's
fine.
overload of material. So this is the building that I went to work out in as a kid doing Olympic style weightlifting. Look at that place, just a very stark place.
Now you're saying
All
the
right.
gym was
Now,
underground in that building?
yeah, so figure this is the back wall flat, and then your stadium bleachers are on the other side, like this. It's underneath there.
Oh,
This is no retro. This is a gym that had the gutters on the inside to get the water that was leaking. All right. Not the prettiest place. So one
hardcore.
day yeah, I'm sitting outside the high school looking at the place I'm going to work out tonight. And the kid next to me says, "Hey, you going to the dance tonight?" I go, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, the dance." I said, "No, I don't know anything about it." "Oh, every Friday night." I looked up with pride. I said, "You see that building over there in the stadium? That's where I'll be at 6:30 working out." And he was totally puzzled. You know what I mean?
That's
So that's,
dedication for a teenage boy.
yep. This is, look at this skinny bastard. That's me. My first bodybuilding, my first weightlifting competition.
Well, for
Skinny.
a skinny bastard, you're lifting a lot there.
Yeah. And guess what? I didn't have like a singlet. It was too early. We didn't have that. I was in Maryland at the Annapolis Naval Academy taking a amateur wrestling camp. And I needed a bathing suit. So I went to a local place and bought that bathing suit. And that's what I competed in, a bathing suit and a t-shirt, right?
Do what you
And
can.
then that's right. And then you fast forward to something like that. It's me, my dad, and my best friend, my late friend, Renee Gabay, achieving awards for 3 years in a row, being in the top three in the country in the Junior Olympics.
All right.
And this would be another one from that time frame.
Now, this was what, 15, 16?
Right here is 1976. So I'm 17 years old.
Wow. I was one.
Thank you. This is just us winning team trophies. You see the guy with the looks like I have an afro. You see the two guys in the front? Look behind
Yes.
them. You'll see the afro. That's me.
Oh, there we go. I see it.
Oh,
Great.
man, this thing is tough.
Yeah,
And that
no.
guy in the front with the big arm,
Mhm.
that guy in the front with the big arms, that's Phil Grapaldi, the Olympic champion. And we had that gym because of him. I often said, of that gym, that's where you went to become, that's where boys went to become men and where men became great. And that's the truth. There's not a person, a male from 1950 to 1980 that didn't work out in that gym. Just another idea. It wasn't once. We were team champions all across the country. The Belleville Barbell Club. All right. Oh, I threw this in here. This is my first wrestling license. I don't know. No, the
Oh,
first one would have
we
been
all have
86, but that's it.
that from Larry Hazard.
Yes. Yep.
Yes, that's the one we all have. Mine is actually all cut up and written all over because my daughter just loved to take all my wrestling pictures and everything when she was a child.
Really?
right all over everything. So it's like cut into like a million pieces. But I still have it. I still have it.
I have one where cousin Luke is in behind me in the picture.
Oh, great. That's something you want.
Now, this is me after that at 160. Okay,
Oh, wow.
just a random picture of me coming from the gym. This is me competing. Hold on. Natural. Oh, man, I'm having a hard time with this. How's that? No.
That's lay it out a little
Look at the
flatter.
abs. Look at the abs.
Oh, that's you in the back. Oh, wow. That's you in the back there. Wow.
Now, I'm competing now. At that point, they never took anything, and I was competing in a non-drug tested competition, clean and winning, still doing well. Here, I'll give you a better shot of that. This is me and my dad.
Oh, that's a much better shot. Much, much better. Wow. That's natural.
With a six-pack. Yep.
Guys can't get like that without the gas now, like forever. I don't think I've ever seen someone not hitting the gas with a six-pack.
Not many, which is my point. And also that when people say to me, ask me about steroids, do you think I was taking steroids as that little weightlifter, lifting weights?
Right.
No. And if I'm big and developed at the end, the steroids were a part of it, but you had to get to this point before you could get anything out of the steroids.
So this was all during your teenage years of development.
Yep. This is the first trophy I ever got. I went to Hampton Roads, Virginia, and took second place. This is from my first competition. I got to get this right, honey. I'm sorry.
All That's right? Good right there.
Still natural. Yep.
That's amazing, actually. Looking all oiled up and tan, and we can see
82, 1982, wow. 1983, preparing for the Mr. New Jersey. Oh, my God.
Oh, there we go. Oh, right. There we are.
Just another
Mr. New Jersey,
random.
How did that turn out?
Huh?
How did Mr. New Jersey turn out? Oh,
I won.
See, a lot of people don't know.
Do you know where I was in 1982? Sitting in the audience of the Mr. New Jersey with beer that we smuggled in, and I saw a guy that I knew come in second place, and I go, I could beat that guy. My friends were like, you're an Olympic lifter. I said, let me tell you something. I will be in that show next year, and I will win the middle class. That's a big, big boast, right?
Hey, you got goals,
Yeah.
See other people that aren't doing it quite well, and you're like, oh, I could do that. You take over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going in and just take it right over.
This is the way I walked around normally. That's just an ex-girlfriend. Lean, always in shape. You cannot look at that body and say he's overloaded on steroids.
You look like Rambo.
Yeah, I am.
Walking around with the headband and the shorts. That's amazing. Amazing. See, and a lot of stuff people don't know. These are the achievements.
I know. Let me get this right. Hold on. Acapulco.
Amazing. Great.
All right, 84. 85 Mr. America competition with my dad. Let me get this right.
A little bit. Good. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, that's a great one. You're ripped.
Not even posing. Just relaxed, right?
So ripped.
Thank you.
I bet you aren't eating anything.
No, I got away with it. But, so there I am, made that post, right? Fast forward, I started already into bodybuilding training, but as far as making a boast like you were going to win the state contest a year from then, are you there?
Yeah. Oh, I'm here.
You were gone.
I'm
No,
here.
you were
I can
gone,
hear. Dog, can you see
but you
me?
were. Okay.
Oh, okay. I'm
Um,
here.
yes,
StreamYard. It goes in and out.
but no.
As long as you're here,
Right.
don't worry
So
about me.
anyway, I joined a local bodybuilding gym, and I started my preparation to get into this competition. Now, because I had never competed before, I qualified for the Mr. New Jersey by going in a smaller show. I went and I won that show. Then I came back and beat 32 of the best guys in New Jersey to win the middleweight Mr. New Jersey. All right.
All
You
right.
ready for this? Before I broke in, this is the man I spent 2 hours with, my idol, Bruno Sammartino. There was a muffler shop opening up, and the promotion was he was going to be there. I go down there, nobody else shows up. 2 hours with Bruno, just talking about I want to be in the business, so on and so forth. Okay, my my training partner, Barnyard Brewster, became his gimmick. This is on the boardwalk of Gary Capetta's um, pier in Seaside, New Jersey. Now, keep in mind, Gary Capetta was one of those guys who used to let me in the back of the building. I knew a lot of these guys just by going because I went to the shows as a regular. And in 1977, I was working at South Mountain Arena in Montclair, where, I don't know if you know, but that's a venue that the WWF used to go to. So, of course, I made myself available. So here comes Johnny Rods coming out to shoot. But before the shoot, there was a curtain halfway up the chute. So if you went up to the top of the bleachers, you could look over and you could see the guys. So I hollered down, Java Rook. He turns around, he looks at me, and he cracks a smile. Years later, I'm in the locker room, and I told him, he goes, that was you stupid kid? He goes, how did you know that? Because there was no internet. If you got a magazine, the information was 3 months old. So
Right.
nobody knew that because I bought multiple magazines. One magazine said, results from New York, Johnny Rods. Other one said, results from the Olympic Auditorium in California, Java Rook. I go, that's the same guy. So I knew stuff that, you got to be stupid to know. Barnyard
Not
Brewster. So this is our
right.
training was still going on. I showed you. So when Gary Capetta realized I was out there training, and that happened because I skipped something. I saw an article before I broke in the Wrestling Eye magazine, and it was telling you a story about EWA, Eastern Wrestling Alliance, and that they were located in Warren, New Jersey. No phone number or anything. So I called them information, and he gave me the number. So I called them, and I said, I'm interested in getting into wrestling. They just blew me off like you can't believe, right? I said, okay. Then I heard that they were running in Seaside on that boardwalk where I trained. So I come in. That was right after the 1985 Mr. America. So nobody looked like me walking around. It just didn't. So I watched the show. It was terrible. The only guy that was any good was under a mask. Turns out to be Ted Petty. All right. So I'm standing in the corner like this, watching, jacked. All of a sudden, Jimmy Ryan. So it was Dennis Galam, Murdy Galam, husband, wife, and then there was a guy, Jimmy Ryan, and they had Teddy helping them out, and they were running local shows. So I wasn't going to go over to them. I was waiting. They spotted me. I don't know who it was that came over and said, wow, man, you look unbelievable. I said, thank you. He said, you ever think about getting into wrestling? I said, yeah, I did. As a matter of fact, I called you, and you blew me off. Oh, well, we don't know who we're talking to on the phone. Wow, you look unbelievable. Would you be interested in training? I said, quite frankly, I could run circles around everybody that I saw tonight, except for the guy in the mask. Who is he? Ted Petty. Hooked us up. We go start our training, and that's where Gary Capetta came out. He goes, is that Tommy Cairo? Meanwhile, I'm 60 pounds heavier. He never saw me that big. And it happened to be a coincidence that he was there. We trained there, and while I'm in training, weeks in, here comes Tom Fernini, Tom Cervaldi. Is it Mario? Tom Fernini from the Savoldi clan. Hey, kid, you look pretty good. So I'll tell you what, I want you to call me. I want to bring you up to East Lyme, Connecticut. I'm like, for what? He goes, what do you mean for what? To wrestle. I said, I'm training. You'll be fine. You come up to East Lyme, Connecticut. I said, okay. Now I got no gear. So I talked to Gary. He said, you got, I don't have nothing. I said, I have nothing. He gave me K&H, which was Carl and Hildegard. They were the first people to make, trunks. And B&A Boot Shop, Paris, Arkansas. Gary Capetta gave me $100 bill and said, trace your pattern of your foot and send it to these people. So I got my trunks. I got everything in time for the show. Okay. I carted my ass up there to East Lyme, Connecticut. I was promised $100. Now, this is what people don't realize. $100. I only got 60 of it, but for the Saboldis, that's pretty good.
Right. At least
I went up there. Yeah. And it was exciting because it was a co-promotion with the AWA. So Vern was there. Everybody was there. I worked with Colonel De Beers, zero offense, which I never did again.
What year was this?
1986.
Okay.
Now, I had no offense. Colonel De Beers put me in the tombstone, whatever, and that was it. And he said, you did a great job, kid. All I did was listen like I was told. Listen, right? Let me tell you something. I never really was under after that. Never. I went right. So I began working for other really good people in my life, which was Davey O'Hannon. And I don't know, there was a guy years ago by the name of Pete Reeves. He was a jobber, mid-card, low-card guy. He had a goatee. And I remember seeing an article in a magazine. He had his jeans on working out, and his arms were over the preacher bench. And I was like, totally like, wow, this is so cool, right? Well, he turns out to be the nephew of my mother's best friend. So, of course, I went nuts. I went over and I met him. And then you fast forward to going to work for Davey through Pete Reeves. Do you know when I went to work for them, the first match, you know what they paid me? $100. And the second match, they gave me 110. People don't believe that. That was the standard pay back then. I'm not even kidding. So, when these kids today work for a couple of hot dogs, I'm like, they don't believe us that we made that kind of money. But we did. And you're talking 86, that's good money. So, anyway, am I doing all right here?
Yeah, great.
Am I doing all right?
Yes. As a matter of fact, we have some people in the chat. We have Brittany Brown joining us. We have Steve Lawrence joining us. We have Michelle Osorio joining us. Antonio Cartonius. Shane Bracco, who's glued to the story. So, we're doing great here. Please keep rolling along. This is great. Okay. Especially the comments about the hot dogs are lukewarm.
Yeah.
People are saying.
When people say that they're busy and they do so many different things at one time, check this out. I began my apprenticeship in the electrical union at the same time that I began my apprenticeship as a worker, began training. So at the same time, I'm going to apprenticeship school 2 nights a week. I'm wrestling and bouncing on the weekend, training with like insanity. I was bouncing in a place right before the Mr. New Jersey where I had to wedge myself between the cigarette machine, which they don't have anymore, and the jukebox so that I can sleep. And if there was a problem, the guy on the other side will bang on the jukebox, and I'd wake up and go to the problem, take care of it, and go right back.
Sounds easy enough.
Yeah. So there's me and Gary Capetta on the boardwalk. I would do an appearance for him, and talk to the people on the boardwalk. I had to pay him back for what he did for me. All right. Now, keep in mind, at the same time, I'm in the electrical union. Tommy Fierro, when he contacted me about this award ceremony, he didn't say anything about the award yet. He wanted to make sure that the date was open. So he told me we wanted to know if you wanted to be involved in this Royal Rumble. I'm like, bro, I don't know about that. He's like, no, you'll be fine. You won't have to take any bumps. Well, I know I am not taking any bumps. And then once he knew, about a day later, he put it out that he was giving us these awards. Unbeknownst to me, all these years I know him, I am the reason that he got into the business. Why? When I get to the picture, I'll show you. While I'm working as an electrician in a high-rise building, across the street was the Robert Treat Hotel. I was going to work that weekend right across the street in the Robert Treat Hotel. So apparently I met his brother, who's deceased now, and that's why it has so much meaning to him. And he said to me, you know what? My little brother is obsessed with this. I don't know who it is now, right? I didn't know this until a month ago. I said, oh, really? I said, come over here. And I grabbed him by the arm over to the window, 16 floors up. And I say, you see that building there, down there? That's the Robert Treat Hotel. You be down there on Saturday night, and I'll get you in. He came down with Tommy, right? I got them in, and then I brought Tommy in the locker room and had everybody in the locker room sign his poster. So you never know when this stuff, comes back on you. You reap what you sow, and if you sow well, you reap well. So at the same time, here's that building that I just told you about. I was on is right there. The Twin Towers are behind me. You probably can't see them, but they are there. Anyway, this is the building that I dragged his brother over to the window. Just another example of me up and doing my thing here while I was trying to become a wrestler. And of course, in shape on the job. Hold on. While working at the Newark Airport. All right. Now.
Just walk around with your shirt off, doing the lighting and electrical.
Yeah.
And making people get into car accidents, probably seeing that body.
Maybe. All the gay guys were like beeping at me and shit,
I bet.
All right. So this is a picture from that match that I worked Colonel De Beers up in East Lyme, Connecticut, where Tom Savoldi came to get me. In the back, you can see. Do you see AWA? Hold on. See it on the.
A little closer. Hold it a little closer.
See it?
Okay. All right. Over a little bit. Over a little bit to the left.
Oh, the other way.
Right to the right.
Oh my God.
All right. Other way. I can see the AWA thing though.
Okay.
Over. Okay, we got the point of that. But
that right now,
86.
I was afforded these luxuries of being new in the business and being able to go into the locker room with it, but where it came from. And because already I shoulders above almost everybody. Back, I'm still no picture on my screen, but anyway.
No, are we back? Christina, are we
Neither
back?
one of us are showing. You are, and I'm not.
Okay.
Not yet.
It'll eventually come back in. StreamYard does this, and I apologize to anyone. Tommy Cairo just got dropped. Okay, now you're back on. Do you see me?
Okay, let's answer some questions.
Okay,
yes.
Great. So
you're beautiful.
Okay, so we have Mitch Seinfeld has joined us, a good friend of yours, I believe, for a long time. I also know Mitch. Hi, Mitch. Andy Nichols also joined us. Panther Rodriguez is joining us. He said, hey, big bro. And let's see, Mitch is multitasking. Andy Nichols says, I was a big fan from your feud with the Sandman. I was thrilled when Lou Reardon brought you to feud with Manny Fernandez in Long Island. So,
wow.
How'd you like your feud with Manny?
The best thing I ever did. I got to open my door. It's hot here. Hold on 1 second.
All righty. So I'm going to get to reading all you guys' comments and questions now. So if you've been watching and you have any questions for Tommy, now's the time to start asking. So go on.
Where are we?
Okay, so your feud with Manny Fernandez in Long Island, was that for USA Pro Wrestling and Frank Goodman?
Yes, but we did that match for every significant independent promotion for almost 2 years. Now, what happened was Manny and I met when I had a small school in a racquetball court in a health club. We met then and we hit it off. And basically, he was one of my favorite guys, but I remember him more as the working class hero. And I just thought he was so cool, so genuine. And I thought he was just a total badass, which he is. We connected, and I am a fan of cemento, snug, stiff, whatever. I feed off of it, and as long as we're not getting hurt, that's the way I like to work. Because I'm not selling no phantom kick or punch. I'm just not. So with Manny, it was a matter of everybody else was afraid to work him, and if he felt that you didn't deserve to be in there with him, you better be ready to fight for your life. Because even I, who he has a lot of respect for, I was worried sometimes when I look over and Manny was nowhere to be found. But I will say,
Manny's a tricky one.
but I'll tell you this: Manny has said on Facebook that the matches we had were as brutal as anything he had with Wahoo or anybody else. And to me, if I could get that guy to say that about me, I'm good. You know what I mean? And everybody was afraid of him. So we hadn't spoken in a while, and supposedly there was like heat between us, and everybody was wondering this was going to be the first time we were put together in a while for Cousin Luke. And everybody was speculating, oh my God, what's going to happen? We saw each other, we ran and hugged each other, and just, I love the guy, Does that answer?
Pretty good. So Andy Nichols said it was actually Eastern Shores Wrestling for Lou Reardon.
Lou
So
Reardon.
yes, Lou is a good guy. Lou,
Yeah.
I'm back on the swing of things. Let's see. Panther Rodriguez says, "Hey, bro." A lot of these, some people were talking about, you were responsible for getting a lot of these guys when you started running your own promotion. And
Mm-hmm.
then also you were on the radio for a while, I believe, right? And
Yep.
like
Yep.
you're responsible for getting a lot of people in this business, for training a lot of people. And like I was saying earlier, a lot of the right now generation doesn't realize that if it was not for people in the past like yourself, opening that door for them, and they wouldn't be here right now. They wouldn't have a place. They wouldn't have a reason to call themselves hardcore. They wouldn't have anything to base themselves
Mm-hmm.
off of, or and it aggravates me when it's disrespectful to say, well, I don't know what this person did and I don't know what that person did. Well, now we're letting you know
Right.
all the achievements that have been made in a person's career, so you know where they stand, and when you're listening to them, they're a credible person who's achieved a lot in not only professional wrestling, but other aspects of
Sure.
sports that should be respected. Now, you also had some time in Japan when you started
Yes.
wrestling. So let's
I want. I
just.
want to backtrack. I want to
I'm
backtrack
sorry.
1 minute. Mitch Seinfeld, who was on, just so he doesn't get his feelings hurt, he's got to know that chronologically I have not got to him, but I'm about to, because
Okay.
Mitch and Carmine DeSpirito were the two of the youngest promoters ever, and they gave me some of my first work. So I have to give my hat off to them. We have a lot of fun and a lot of stories and a lot of history, but they, yes, were involved and instrumental in giving me some of the work that I did get early. Now, let me just
So
show you something.
we do really quickly, and I know you're going to go back. You're going to go back to this. You could finish what you were saying to begin with, but first off, Mitch says, "What about the 17-year-old promoter kid?" Which we're referring to you, Mitch, and Jack Yeager says, "Greetings and salutations. Tommy, what was the ECW locker room like from 1993 to 1994? Did things change as the company started to slowly gain traction?" Now, that's something I think that we should work into pretty soon,
Mm-hmm.
because you have a lot of things to say about your experiences as we're working up to it in
Yep.
ECW, and then beyond a little bit on if you want to get maybe into independence first, and then we'll talk about
Sure.
ECW. We'll try to save ECW.
How much time are we looking at left?
Um,
About.
uh, we're good. We started at seven.
Okay.
We're at 7:45. So let's just
Okay.
keep going. And if
All
you'd
right.
like
I
to answer
want.
that question now, but
Yes.
I'd like to continue the story of Tommy Cairo before
Yes.
we go up to ECW here.
I can answer that pretty quickly. I would say that we were headed downward pretty quickly. Before we ever got to a point where we were doing well on our own, we were on a steady, going up steady until just about the time we were doing well under Eddie Gilbert, and everything was light and happy and fun under Todd Gordon, and still good under Eddie Gilbert. You know when it went downhill. As soon as Paulie came in, Eddie was out, and that's when things changed because the integrity was not there, and everything he said was based on crap. So how can that be good? It can't be good. Does that answer that question? I think,
Briefly,
right?
briefly.
Yeah. Again, I had fun, a lot of fun. But when you start to get to the point where you get a stomach ache on your way to the arena or building that ECW is working in, it's not so fun
It's not,
anymore.
and it's not worth it anymore. When it starts to make you
No.
sick and it's not fun and it becomes a sickening job, then you don't want
Yeah.
to go to that job. So
And
a little bit
we'll
more
get to
about
that.
before ECW, your life before ECW. Let's pick up where we left off and
Okay.
learn more about that.
Mitch Seinfeld, that just called, was responsible for putting me. Hold on. I'll go from this. I'll go from the other side. You know what it is? I can't see when I got the picture in front of me. All right, that's Brian Walsh, a guy that was big in New England. Okay, Nature Boy Brian Walsh. That was working for Carmine and Mitch, who incidentally, Carmine's uncle was a man by the name of Floyd DeSpirito. And I bugged him when I went to the stadium and bugged him to teach me. And finally, he said, all right. And he helped to start training me. So it's such a small world. It's unbelievable. Now,
Yeah, Carmine also with a Lifetime Achievement Award recently. Carmine, just one of my favorite guys
the
in the
best,
world.
the best.
Seriously, absolute
Now,
best.
this started. He turned around. It was like a 3-night, 2-night, 3-night thing, and they wanted to have the title change hands. So this belt, wait, I'm going to do it this way. That
Yeah,
belt
that's
right there, that's from Kowalski's organization. That was like the junior heavyweight championship or whatever. So him and I had a match. He gave me the belt because the next night we were going to swap it. So when I got back to the locker room, I promptly dropped the belt by his stuff. He goes, Tommy, what are you doing with that accent? So what do you mean? You take that belt and you go out in the hallway and take a bunch of pictures. Never miss an opportunity if you got that belt, you're going to use them. And I was like, wow, great. He was a tremendous guy. But he liked to get color, and he never covered his blade over after he used it. So here I go to take a shower after the match. I'm like, oh, all little slits on my body.
Wonderful.
Now, you see this picture? That's me with Davey G, Dave Giggled, at that Newark hotel where Tommy Fierro is in that audience somewhere.
Oh, little
Okay?
time.
It's amazing, right?
Mm.
Early training at what's his name? Gino, not Gino. Who's yeah, you know who I'm talking about. Let me think. Caruso. That's at his school with a guy by the name of Eric Fox. He actually did some dark matches for WWE. All right. Now, in the beginning, remember when I said they sent me to East Lyme, Connecticut, right? This is one of the guys that I met. Who's that? Vern Gagne.
Oh, Vern.
Nicest guy you want to meet. This is like the first month in the business. This is the other guy I met there. Nick Bockwinkel.
All right. One of Carmine's favorites.
Yep. My first magazine shot in Carmine's magazine, Wrestling Eye. You're going to like this one. Me and an under-muscled Tom Brandy.
Oh, early Tom Brandy. Tom Brandy also received a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yes. Yep.
Yes, very happy to see that. Along with Ray as well.
This became a 5-page article done by Bev Raines. I don't know if you remember her.
Sure.
She used to take, yep.
Oh, Beverly, yes.
Yep. All right. Now, funny story. There was an old-time guy, Don Rock, his name was. He wasn't too hot. He was out of New York. So I forget who I was working for, but we were in Asbury Park. And apparently, the show before, I went over. So I guess the promoter was fit that I put this guy over. So that's in the ring in Asbury Park. So I go over to Don Rock, thinking I'm going over, and I lay out my finish for him. Then the promoter comes over. And says, no, you got to put him over. I said, whatever. The guy got so blown up that after 3 minutes, he goes, let's do your finish. And he let me go over.
Easy night.
All right. Yeah. Do we have anything to answer right now?
So, yes, Andy Nichols has a question for both of us. He says, what was it like working with Eddie Gilbert and Doug Gilbert? Any cool stories?
Yes. Johnny Hotby and I couldn't work together for some reason. I didn't like him. He didn't like me. And it's funny because I looked at tapes of our matches that I thought were completely horrible. We just didn't connect. So this particular night, he has to put me over. And we're in the back and we're going over the match. And he's like, oh, I'm sick. Like, trying to beg off, not having to do anything. I got the flu, so on and so forth. So I was going to do what I was going to do anyway. So I said, whatever, we'll see how it goes. Play it by ear. So, of course, we went in. We did what I had to do. And on the way back, Eddie grabbed me. He says, let me tell you something. We made the decision to give you a push because we believe you have the ability. Don't you ever let anybody steal your thunder. The way you have to help people on their way up, if they're asked to do it to help you and they don't want to, sit out or beat his ass to a pulp. And he was, he gave me a good piece of information. And I believe that he really thought that, and knew that I could be utilized. And also, if you want to get big, right, and look good, and you go in a locker room and you want to find out how to do it, who do you go to? You go to the big guy, right?
Makes sense.
He also needed, PEDs. So that was also part of my beginnings. I got to tell you a story about that. Remember, PEDs getting caught with steroids in New York.
Oh, okay.
Chronological? Yeah. So 89, right? I don't know. Yes, 89. That's the best I think I ever looked in volleyball.
Wow.
That was my last show winning the Gold's Classic.
Incredible.
All right. You said Japan, right?
Yes.
Now, everything that we did ahead of time was frowned upon, but then done by everybody else later, including a relationship with a company in Japan. However, I think he looked at it like, oh, he's doing shoot wrestling. We're not. They're real. We're not. Well, it's all a work. So I don't see how it makes any difference. But when I came back from New York, the first thing he did was have Kevin and me in a shoot match. And then Kevin hits me over the head with a bell. So what's the meaning behind that? Oh, we'll show you. You're a shoot wrestler. We hit you in the head with a bell. How do you like that? That's what it was about. On the plane. Yeah. On the plane. This was in between while I was working for ECW. That's Billy Robinson and me on the plane. So over there, you had access to legends that you went and had tea with in Yokohama. They were just fantastic. All right. Who's this guy? One of the best ever and known for dropping H bombs on people, Halcyon. So, of course, knowing that, as soon as I got a chance, I asked him for some.
Right.
And he obliged. Danny Hodge, right? Me and Mitsuhiro Kanahara. Right here, I had to get control of him, and I brought him to the mat, double armbar, and said to him, brother, whatever you want to do. There was no way he could have escaped in a million years. Everything went nice and smooth after that.
That's a great
Because
shot.
the
I don't know who took that picture, but great shot.
Thank you. Thank you. The Japanese workers in UWF were stupid because what they did was portray themselves as being a shoot, and then under the premise that if we're working stiff, how am I supposed to gauge whether I'm hitting you too hard? So within that, they would try to take your head off and then apologize later. But I would never allow it.
Which promotion was this for? Was this the FMW experience?
No,
UWF?
UWF. UWF.
Okay.
This is me with the driver and a green boy in Yokohama. Good people, but the workers sucked. More Japan. Let me see.
Just because it's in Japan, sometimes it doesn't mean it's all good. And people make that mistake a lot. They're like, "Oh, but it's Japanese. That doesn't mean that it's good. It really doesn't."
Now,
but,
we are in
better than others.
Early ECW. We moved to now. Pennsylvania heavyweight champion under Eddie Gilbert. Part of the reason that Paulie wanted to get me out of there is because I looked badder and was badder than anybody else that was there. Bottom line.
You know what, Tommy? Before we get to that, we have a question from Shane Bracco. Any memories or stories of working the Pittsburgh, West Virginia scene at this point in his career, or did he not make it for that yet? Did you not make it that far yet in your story?
No, not Pittsburgh, but I worked for Rock and Rebel out there in Westchester or wherever it was. I did work for Pennsylvania, but never out in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Still early ECW. JT Smith in the background.
Now, what year was this?
This would have been, let me think. Well, if I supposedly started in 92, which I can't believe, it had to be 92, 93.
Right.
All right. I think right before Eddie. All right. Another gracious person in the business, Uncle Ivan. Put me over clean in a Russian chain match. And you can see I hung myself to make it real. I actually let pressure on my neck to pull on the chain.
The risks that were taken back then, it's amazing that, people will just forget about it. They'll forget all about things now that they're allowed to do.
You couldn't hang me back then. My neck was 21 inches. Again, total looking badass with the ability to back it up. But they made me get rid of this gimmick. For some reason, I guess it wasn't bad enough for them, or it was too bad. Now, remember, did I tell you the story about Ivan Koloff's tattoo?
Tell it.
All right.
You told me, but no, other people don't know this story.
Let me see if I can get it close enough. Hold on.
Oh, Chris Vanderden?
Oh, Chris Van Orden.
Says, hey, brother, he misses you. You're his man.
I love that kid. What happened was his father was very good friends with Gene Pettit, his cousin Luke. And cousin Luke was one of my biggest supporters, and I became friendly with the son. The father passed, unfortunately, but tremendous people. I'm going to give you real quick. I want to do this. So Ivan Koloff started as Red McNulty, a guy from the South with an accent. So as he moved along into his gimmick as a Russian, prior to that, he had the eagle on his arm, which is, of course, a symbol of America. He didn't want anybody to question that. So he had a Russian sickle added to the tattoo with the point of the sickle going into the eagle's eye with blood squirting out. That's dedication to your gimmick, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's pretty deep.
Working the Booker man's arm. Eddie Gilbert. And who's that over my shoulder? Do you know?
Yeah, I know. It's Larry Winters.
Larry Winters.
See, and these
Now,
are a lot of the people that, people wouldn't recognize Larry
yes.
Winters for some reason, because they only take
Yeah,
things back so far, and they only
exactly.
remember for some reason 95 or 94 is a starting point, and don't recognize
Yeah,
anyone before that was in ECW. And it's really just, it's so nerve-wracking
it
for all
is.
of us that were there before Paul Heyman
Yeah.
and before what he did. So continue.
We cooked, we set the table, and they sat down to dinner. Okay. This is my favorite look. Oh, hold on. Man, am I bad at this? All right,
It's
I'll
fine.
get it. Now this
A
way.
little bit. Perfect.
That's about 94. I'm in ECW, and I weigh 250 pounds. And if I had a choice of how to look and what to weigh, that would have been it. Okay. Part of one of the beginning shots of trying to get the gimmick over.
Yeah.
By now, I'm in street clothes. Somebody put a post up about and a picture of high tech boots and said, in the back in the day, if you didn't have these, blah blah blah. I said, who do you think started that? Anytime you
Exactly.
saw me in ECW without trunks on, I had high techs on.
Now this is now we're gonna like move into the ECW parts of your career as of right now. Talking about the invention and the first use here in our area in the United States of what they would call the kendo stick, and then later they called the Singapore cane.
Mm.
Maybe let's get a little bit into now your time with ECW and how your character for that was, let's say, developed, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and how it developed,
Right.
or
Because,
had a lack of development. Let's get into
right.
that.
Okay. So this guy, Michael Fay, does whatever he did over there in Singapore. They cane him with a rattan cane. Okay. Very, everybody was talking about it. So at this point, we're kind of like in the beginning stages of Paul. Still not, I'm not happy because I already know what he's about. I can sniff these people out from very far. Okay. If you lack integrity, if you're not honest, let's face it, Paul was nothing more than a glorified Carney style promoter, a photographer who moved his way up in any way he could. That being said, this particular night, he says, I want to talk to everybody like he always did from the stairway, right? About what the next angle we want to work on. Okay, we don't know what to expect. I'm barely paying attention at this point, right? Everybody else is like, why? Okay, so anyway, he goes on to say, you guys all know about this. I think it's a good thing for us to move toward that, utilize that in some way or fashion. And my idea is to get these kendo sticks, which we will call Singapore canes, and have these guys have different matches involving the cane, but you're going to have to get color and not just your head. You're going to have to get color and not just your head. Nobody put their hands up, right? I looked across the Sandman and put my hand up, right? That was that. We decided to move on in the conversation, whatever. Soon as the meeting broke up, guys were in our ear. What are you going to do that for? Because don't forget, I'm wrong when I said they were all like this. That's wrong. That was later. At this point, he had not ingratiated himself with anybody. And at that point, nobody knew what he was capable of, and nobody had any allegiance to him at that point. So they thought what we were doing was just not right, and that he may be asking everybody to do something that we shouldn't do. Okay, but my thought was, I got to get a step up the ladder. It's not happening right now, so I got to find a way to do it. I give a shit if I got to cut myself. What do I care, right? Sure enough, that's how it started. And all these people that got in our ear, they based the whole rest of their career on the hardcore style. So when you begin to tell that story and you start at Tommy Dreamer, there's something wrong there. Okay, because I did find you can reference these the top 5 influential people that shaped ECW and the forgotten stars of ECW, where I'm credited as being one of 2 people who actually began that whole thing. So I was at an autograph session recently next to Sandman, and he picked up the pictures that I had of me and him in Singapore, 4 different matches, and he looked and he goes, "That is really where it started." Okay, so why, when you were part of telling all these stories, and you didn't say, "Hey, wait a minute, what about Tommy?" So that is really the catalyst for part of, after all these years wanting to set the record straight, because like you get tired of so many stories that you were excluded from. You'd have to go, like I did, search to find 2 places where they told the truth, and everything else is a lie. Just mind-blowing, to say the least. But it was okay, because I didn't have to make the record right. But now that we're doing it for a different reason, I'm glad for both you and me. So, at the end, they put us together, and, it didn't have legs. And I don't know if anybody knows this, but I was not fired. I had a bad back, plus it was a perfect storm. It was bad enough, added with the bullshit, to say, I'm gone. And disrespecting Dennis Coralluzzo. Hey, guys, it's a work, okay? Why are you utilizing the platform of your business to get back at people, to name guys after the promoters, similar name to the promoters who are running around your area?
Now, not to interrupt you there, Tommy, but there's a question that goes along with this that says, did you ever wrestle for Joel Goodhart and TWA prior to ECW?
No, I wasn't I don't think I was in the business yet.
Right.
Never
so
worked for him.
Joel Goodhart being like the original, he had all the ECW guys before ECW actually had them. And a lot of what you're saying is a lot of what other guys experience as well. Back then, when the company was, just taken over by Paul and it was new, it wasn't like it was a suggested thing. And if you were to volunteer something, it was already kind of assumed that when he blurted it out loud, who wants to do this, that he already had in mind who would do whatever he was suggesting. So
maybe,
like the master manipulator that he is, he got what he wanted off of the people that he needed to. And then, when he didn't need you anymore, you were out the door. And that's a lot of it right now is being told. And a lot of people like yourself are being left out of it, the history. And a lot of people like myself also being left out of the history of a company that, we're originals from. And we shouldn't
originals.
Right. We shouldn't be skipped over, because if it wasn't for the things that we did, there wouldn't be a spot for a lot of these people right now. Women wouldn't be getting abused constantly and bleeding and doing all this stuff if it wasn't for me. I'm going to not boastful or anything, but that's
we're not keeping quiet anymore.
No, and the whole thing with everyone using a cane and doing cane spots and all this hardcore and everything, they got to go back to where it started and realize that they're not the first of, and nothing you're doing.
And we weren't really either.
So original.
We really weren't either.
And I'm not being a hater by saying this. Congratulations to all the newer younger people who are out there and giving it their all and doing it and looking good doing it. But to those who are, not really perfecting their craft, like, you be careful because you're going to hurt yourself. It's
Exactly. And what's funny is they want to call Paulie all these things, a genius, this and that. Guess what? Tupelo concession stand brawl. They were doing it way before we, and there were people doing it. Nothing that we did or anybody does going forward hasn't been done before. So you're not inventing
if
anything.
if you want to, like, talk really real, our my part of hardcore and all that extreme ultra violent wrestling started with UWF back in the
Yeah,
day, and then it escalated to CWF and other,
yeah,
Memphis, even USWA, were the originators of, like, blood
yes,
everywhere, and, like,
yeah,
pile drivers through tables and sticks and chairs and all this stuff. So if you want to learn your wrestling history before, and your past, before you head into the future thinking that you know it all, and
yeah,
insulting people who are, were part of forming your future right now,
yeah,
you need to learn what it is you're talking about before you go on social media and start
yeah,
bashing people about, I don't know who this one is or that one is. And that's exactly why we're doing this tonight, because all the
yeah. Now
achievements
you've
that
been,
you have had, a lot of people don't know your whole story, and a lot of people don't know
no,
a lot of stories of people. And the thing is, if you listen to everything that's going on about these reunions and everything that people are having, they are literally changing history to
yeah,
suit their own stories of what they're doing now,
yeah,
and leaving people out who are totally necessary to at least bring up.
yeah.
So
Now
we
you
got,
mentioned, good,
I'm sorry, Steve Lawrence says, I remember the night I met Tommy. I had a cane, and Phil Varlise
Harley's,
said,
yeah,
hey, go bring your stick. But I walked by Tommy before the curtain and asked his permission to use it. He obliged, and I got over for the first time in my career. Always appreciative of that moment. So,
good kid.
Steve Lawrence, a huge admirer of
Yep.
yours, I say.
Yeah, he's a great, great kid, respectful. He liked the medicine like I like the medicine, But anyway, you said something that was not far removed from Paulie doing things that they were given the status of being a genius. What about Joel Goodhart? All his stuff was hardcore. Abby, Bruiser Brody, it was all
First
hardcore.
part,
Yeah. So that company had started with that already, and now you're going to claim that you came up with it? Plus, he was going to FMW. He saw that. No big deal to put that together. Um, there was something I wanted to say. What was? But anyway, so at this point, we're good, right?
oh yeah, we're
All
fine.
right. So we've already opened the door about the Singapore cane and the hardcore revolution, as we have come to call it. Um, what I was going to say before is when you said we don't always know everybody else's background, guess what? A lot of people don't have one that is that extensive. And a lot of people just say stuff and claim stuff and people accept it. Who has sat down with pictures to prove why they should be considered heavyweights and have be able to make assessments that matter beyond a lot of people who don't? Okay. So this is during that time period, just the general look, and I was kind of out of my mind at this point. You kind of had to be, because you didn't know what you were going to be faced with. Now I had this idea when Sandman was blinded, so I came to the ring using the cane as a walking stick. See, how I'm looking like I'm blind. So
Yes.
I tried my best to add to it. This is the first of the gigs that didn't include our head. Okay, and of course that's Lori. Now the problem with the arm, Dusty Rhodes has that mess. It's not the same as the head, so you can't go out there for the first time to do it. You have to test it first, which I did, and okay, it worked out. Just results of doing those kind of matches. That's Peaches' hand on my head. Okay. Of course, that's her and I during the Singapore caning fiasco.
Good shot.
And this is part of the many matches that we did. One of that's, and if you see all three of these pictures are different gear, so it proves the fact that we didn't just do it, on a part-time basis. Here we go.
Right. It was a series of matches, not just one here or there. It went on for a while before anyone else started even using this stick.
Yeah. All right. Let me see. I'm almost through most of the pertinent EC. Oh, I got one coming up, which they've seen already, but I have my own. So I'm proud of having that.
Oh.
Okay.
That's one of my favorites, even though my head is covered with blood. It
Awesome.
was worth it enough.
Yes. Me on top of Dan Severn. This is when this was after, that's like 2000. Because the stuff I'm showing you now is post ECW we've moved into now. Who's that on the bottom?
Is that Derek Domino?
Yes, it is.
That's one of my boys, which means I was there.
Yes. I would rather work with you guys than anybody else.
Now, people don't know this about you, is that after you left ECW, I stayed a short amount of time. But at the same time, I was always working for NWA New Jersey for Dennis Carluzzo. So when me and Tommy stopped working together in ECW, we brought that the little thing over to NWA New Jersey. Without me, I was not managing Tommy Cairo anymore. I was actually against him, managing Derek Domino or Harley Lewis interchangeably. And we had a long running feud from about 95 to 98 around, and where we also took to New York and for the Hearts and different promoters that we worked for up there. I thought that was UWA. So we did actually have a history beyond ECW.
Yes, absolutely. And thank God, you know what I mean? It was so much fun. All Harley wanted to do, because most of it was singles, me against Domino, all Harley wanted me to do was put him through a table. That's all he wanted. I said, okay. It's like, I got to tell you this story. I get my mother for the first time to come to a show. So I place her up in the bleachers all the way on the right where there's not too many people on top. So I'm in the locker room, and I go over and I grab Domino, and I drag him over to the window, that little window in the office of the gym teacher. And I said, do you see that lady way up there already? He's like, oh, no, bro. I said, listen, I'm going to drag you up there, beat you on the way up, and right in front of my mother in the bleachers, I'm going to smash you in the head with a can, and it's going to be great. Bro, no way, bro. I said, please do me this favor. All right. Comes the time, we make our way. And unlike these guys today, they give a guy one last shot, and it's going to be 3 minutes before they do the next thing. So if you didn't have kill him, there's no reason for him to be laying there. So as we're going up there from the outside the ring, I'm hitting them all the way, right? I beat him up the stands, back down the stands. The picture is available. I have it somewhere. So the picture is, you don't see my mother, but she's there. And I got Domino on a downside, and I'm smashing him in the head. He's got color. So when it was over, I went to see my mom, half crying and half laughing. She goes, I didn't raise you to be like this. I was like, yes, I did it. I got her,
Oh, this is always one of my favorite stories.
Now,
lots of great matches with the Misfits, and we all had a great time. You work for my TCW promotion, like right after I left TCW, and like that was always great. So we always had a history after ECW that was just tremendous. We always had the best matches.
I got to get this right. Wait, hold on. One more time. Who's that?
Dennis. All right. There goes a picture of Dennis.
That's Yardville.
His memories. Yardville. I always got hurt in Yardville some way. Like, always was brought to the hospital and busted
Oh,
my head open and hurt my
it's
neck and
funny.
back. It's
It's funny you
crazy.
say that because if you remember the owners there, they were nice people.
They
But of
were.
course, like they're wrestling fans, which is why we're there using the building in the first place. So this particular night, the guy that owns the place, he wants to hit me with a chair. All right. So I go over to get the chair and show him basically how to do it. But it was an old chair and he hit me with the wrong side. He hit me with the underside edge, busted my head wide open. They're trying to get me to go to get stitches. It's 11 o'clock at night. I'm not going to the emergency room. Drive
Right.
all the way home, stop, pay the toll at the turnpike, and the lady starts screaming and runs and gets a cone and tries to put it in front of my car because I didn't know it all dried on my head. It looked like my head was cracked open. I kept going, got home to Lyndhurst. My wife looked at it and said, "Let's go. You got to go to the emergency room." I said, "I'm not going to the emergency room on a Saturday night, gunshots and everything else." She convinced me to go, and I had to get like 20 stitches.
Uh,
So, all right.
nice people, though.
Yeah, very nice people. I am going to get this right tonight if it kills me. Who's that? That's your boy.
There we go. Harley Lewis.
No, that's Domino.
Oh, that's Dom. Okay. Yeah, it's Harris.
Domino?
Sometimes I couldn't tell the difference between the
Yeah.
two. We were all having a time in our lives
Yeah, I got you.
we weren't recognizing each other.
That's Ian. In case anybody thought I couldn't get off my feet, mid-air moonsault in Yardville.
Awesome.
You're going to love this. Locker room shenanigans, me and Domino.
Oh, lots of locker room shenanigans.
Right?
Fun times, though. Fun times.
After the medicine,
Exactly. I don't know if this is a story I just want to throw in there. I don't know if you recall when we were working for, was it with the Hearts, Jim Neidhart and
the Falcon.
Yes. Okay. So we were working up in New York and, Frank, Derek Domino, needed the blade around tied for him.
Right.
And the tape somehow got pulled the wrong way and cut his wrist. The vein in his wrist.
No, I did that with a scissor.
But I was going to say if you remembered that you did.
Yeah, what happened was
he went cut underneath and cut his wrist, and he starts and the blood squirted right in my face. I was like, "Oh shit!" Like
I was dying. I was like, "Oh my god!" He couldn't get the tape off. I had this little tiny scissor, and like you said, hysterical.
Funny thing is, the whole ride up, we were arguing, cursing each other out and whatnot. A regular car ride with the Misfits. And, once that happened, it was like we both I forgot all about what we were arguing about. And I couldn't put enough pressure on his wrist and try to tape him up, he's like just bleeding everywhere. So that was a funny memory actually for me. It was hilarious. Yeah. But we had some good times.
Oh, God, he was the funniest guy I ever met. But Derek, please clean your stuff or buy something new. Seriously?
Oh,
his gear.
Well, yeah. The whole thing about it was to be as offensive as possible. But we'll get into the Misfits stories another time.
Yeah.
So moving on to more history. More history, please. You had a picture.
All right. Additional. You have a question?
No. I want to see
additional. That's Imaginations. That's Domino, and that's part of the reason I can't walk. Where the hell am I going to land? Right on the floor, on my hip. Okay. Whenever people say, again, one of my favorite people to work with. That's Domino. The reason every worker should be doing this. Okay. If you forsake your fans, you don't deserve to be in the business. The winning of the NWA North American title against Devin Storm for Dennis Coralluzzo, Williamstown, New Jersey. A guy I've been trying to find for a long time. Mike Vartanian. He made the belts for the ECW. Great kid. He used to hang out with Dick Dudley, and he just disappeared. When Dick died, nobody heard from him again.
Hmm.
The proper way to go anywhere when you're representing the business, a convention, wherever you go, if you want to look good and come across like a professional, that's the way you should dress.
Always a nice suit, no Zubaz.
No. All right. So as far that takes us basically uh, post ECW and brings us around about to 2000 when I started promoting out of the Tropicana. So do you want me to get into that?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, I started out as a personal trainer at the Tropicana. The owner, Dennis Gomes, multimillionaire, notices me there and starts to talk to me. Hey, it's good to have you here. You look like you know what you're doing. I said, yeah, thank you. And he said, I heard you're a wrestler. He said, why don't you run some shows here? I said, quite frankly, Dennis, I thought about eventually approaching you for that, but I don't want that to affect this job that I have. So if things don't go right, I don't want to not have this job. Listen, you do what you got to do. Let's put something together. But this is what I was doing at the time. That was my flyer for my personal training at the Tropicana. I got there, and our first show was 99. We ran there. Now, so if you fast forward to the first event we did, we co-promoted Superstars of Wrestling Outlaws. But who's on the other side that came earlier? Oh, it says it right on there. Superstars of the WWF and the Outlaws of Wrestling. So they did the convention during the day, and we did a show at night. The first show was called, hold on. And when you got the media department at your disposal, you could do anything you want, right?
Nice.
So it was called The Good Outlaws of Wrestling presents Summer Showdown 99, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. And that's Armand, Kid USA, the good. I was a heel in the Trop. The bad, and definitely the ugly, is Gold Gilbert. Let me tell you, they put stuff in the light boxes. The stuff that was produced by them was, you just go down to the art department, collaborate with them, and tomorrow it's done. From the Outlaws of Wrestling. That was in one of the magazines. Now, so I have to deal with a very feminine guy to get this program going. He was their events coordinator. Mm-hmm. The first thing the guy says to me, so what do you wear, like little tights? I'm like, this is not going to be easy. And ultimately, the downfall was he just didn't think he wanted that class of people in his place. At the Outlaws addressing the crowd, everybody knew that I worked there and I was a promoter. Two of my dearest friends in the business, both gone. May they rest in peace. And let me tell you something. We stacked the cards. I had everybody. One of the sweetest guys I've ever met, John Cronus, who incidentally is such a good kid and like baby-like. We're in a locker room for Gino Moore and Panzerino. John, we're behind the stage, and I'd have the curtain, and he'd sit on the stage behind the curtain. So John apparently was smoking a cigarette. Gino Moore, nasty, disrespectful, hollered at John. I got up and I said, you piece of garbage, you couldn't carry his jockstrap. Who the hell do you think you're talking to? Are you serious? I was really, you can't find a better guy than him. Now, I want you to study this, or maybe we could, is there anybody out there that could tell us who that is, ghost-like in the back? You see that person, that boy, that guy?
Is that Trent Acid?
Yes, it is. So
Of course, I would recognize that any day. He was one of my
now,
original boys in TCW. He
yeah,
started out with me.
yep.
So yeah, I would never forget that face, of course.
Now, that being part of the story, because we had stars that have yet to be made, we had stars in the making, and we had past stars. And I had the clout to make the kind of phone calls to get these guys and make it affordable because they're not gonna beat me over the head. A little faction. Who's that? Me, Missy, and Jeannie. Remember Jeannie?
Hold on.
You
Just keep
back?
talking.
Okay.
You'll come back in. It's back now.
All right. Um, me, Missy, and Jeannie. All right. And again, one of my favorite people ever in the business, John Cronus. Every time he saw me, he said, "You stiff bastard." I go, "Me stiff?"
Yeah, right.
He liked it
With his
snug.
big ass.
Yeah. Phil Varlese and John Cronus. Now, I have to mention Phil because anything I've done, promotion or otherwise, has been done with Phil Varlese. Well, we were friends since, I don't know, somewhere in the middle of my career, and he's always been with me. And I always call him and ask him, his input and so on. Who's that? Is that Teddy?
Is that Johnny? Is that Johnny or Teddy?
No, that's Teddy.
Oh, I
It's
can't see.
that's my trainer. Cronus is another. I have friends there too. A lot of friends.
Oh, and another set of our favorites, the Pitbulls, always.
Yep. So
Gary
when
Wolf
we,
with a new podcast, doing pretty
yeah,
good.
I talked to Gary. The young kid that called earlier, Luke.
Mhm.
I dated his mother 30 something years ago, who turns out to be Phil Varlese's cousin. So when the kid is a rabid fan, finds out that his mother dated me, we connected, and we hang out and talk all the time. He comes to some of the things that I go to. He came to Tommy's show. He's been to the Hamburg Field House. Yeah.
It's
My
great.
other mentor, trainer, idol, the best. Now,
Manny.
who I didn't mention was Bobby Bold Eagle, who was very instrumental in my beginning training. As a matter of fact, while I was training, Bobby, the best.
Yes.
And while I was training with him, coming back to work out because I hadn't been away for a while, was Sunny Beach. So him and I worked out in the ring together. He was a great help. The Nature Boy, another one, Buddy Landell.
Oh,
So
he
as you
was
can see, we didn't just have Now, this is the type of relationships that matter. Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to even tell me who they are. Probably not. Okay, but that's Carl von Hess and his wife, Lee. They owned a trailer park not too far from Atlantic City, Carl Lee Apartments. We would visit him, Phil and I, and he would just take his stuff out each time like he never showed us before. And we honored him at one of the Tropicana shows. So, we had the right people all along. This is the last one I got from that. Me and Missy out of one of the magazines. So everybody recalls the Tropicana with great, reverence. And the reason being, when they gave me a contract for the wrestlers, it's had boxer typed and then crossed out and wrestlers written next to it. So they gave us a 4-wall, which is the best deal. And they gave us everything that they would normally give the fighters. Now the fighters come in 2 or 3 days early to acclimate. So everybody had the ability to come in 2 nights early. They had food, things and anything that you could imagine they gave you. So the guys recollect that like working for the big leagues. For them, that was like working for the big leagues.
Right,
And
getting a room and,
yeah,
getting food and everything paid for. It's like it was hard to find that for a long time on Independence and,
yeah,
a lot of promotions because there was a time like when you said when you first started, you were getting paid that bill, the $100
yeah,
payday,
yeah,
and then in somewhere within the mid '90s, I think after I started running, people's pay dropped
yeah,
significantly from like $50 to $25 to $10 to let me owe you to now
yeah.
it's a hot dog. So
Or depending on you selling 20 tickets or something, you know.
exactly.
But
Oh,
I
so
want
Mitch Seinfeld really quickly says,
to,
"Tell
yeah,
the Pat Tanaka story." And there's so many Pat Tanaka stories
oh,
out there that
I know.
pick
All
one.
right. So Pat has had cancer since whenever, but not really had it. No, they don't have cancer. That was his gimmick.
Oh,
Anyway, he lived close to me, to where the Tropicana was. So he started. We got along great. He started coming up and visiting me and using the gym and so on. So one day he's there. I said, "What are you doing here so early?" "Oh, I got to go down to the legal department." I said, "For what?" He goes, "To get my check for my claim." I said, "What are you talking about?" "Oh yeah, I had all these cameras stolen in the locker room. So you came to the place that I work and scammed the place by saying you got cameras stolen." But that was Pat Tanaka. That's just the way he was. I mean, I liked him. I loved him. But I would never let him get to me. The whole gimmick was he would get these young guys and tell them he was going to get them to go to Japan and start collecting money and stuff. And then, of course, it never happened. And at the same time, he told me that he was dying, and that turned out to be a scam. Crazy dude, man, but super talented. And sometimes you look beyond certain aspects of people's behavior because you do care about them, and for some reason you give them a pass. You know, just the way it is.
some
It's
people
up to
don't
you.
deserve a pass. That's the
That's
thing. Some
true.
people don't deserve it.
We're the
So
ones we don't.
Peter Rodriguez says Tommy saved my life when I was in my early 20s from a car going 50 something miles an hour. So and Mitch
Yes.
said the hookers were in the lobby.
Oh,
Whatever
oh, I was going to say
whatever
that.
that means.
All the
Whatever
young kids.
that means.
Well, here's what happened. All the young kids that came from down south, like one of them came running up to me, "Man, I was down in that lobby bar. The girls down here are so nice." I go, "No, they're not. They're prostitutes." He couldn't even fathom in his mind that that could be possible. But Mitch is right. So Panther and I, it's like 17. I think I don't know who we were working for at the Queens Elks Lodge. Okay. I think it might have been Falcon. I'm pretty sure. So I said, "Come on, kid, let's get something to eat." He didn't have the funds. I said, "Don't worry about it. I'll buy you lunch." So we go to walk across the street. All of a sudden, this limo is coming at us backward in reverse, like 100 miles an hour. I actually tackled him, and we went to the ground, and the guy. So from that day on, he tells the story and promised me to tell it. And I only did what I would have done for anybody, but I'm glad it was him. Because there's no doubt. Not only did I save his life, I'm sure I saved mine too, because I was right in the same range.
Yeah, he said he was in UCW at the time. He was in his early 20s. That's was it a promoter? Did you know the person in this car? Or
You knew him. No, you knew the promoter. That's Falcon.
oh, he's the one who backed
Remember you?
up into.
No,
He's the
no,
one.
no, no. But that's who we were working for.
Oh, okay. I was saying, do you know who
Yeah.
was in the car? Do you know
No,
who
we had
was
no
back?
idea.
Oh, okay.
Yep. No, we
Very
didn't know. We didn't know.
careless.
Yeah. Can you
Wow.
imagine?
The
So,
Queens
yeah.
Boulevard. Yes.
Yep.
Exactly. So we got left here. We're up to the 2000s points. You trained a lot of people. You were involved with
Yep.
the
Oh,
school at one point,
yep.
training some
Well,
people.
about, let me think. So 2000 Tropicana, I can't tell you. I think it's like 2006. I'm working for a guy who's a production company, Dan Brown. We became friendly, and he said to me, "Come take a ride with me. I want to show you something." I said, "Okay." He shows me this perfect building for like a school. He goes, you want to put a school in here? I'm like, well, I don't really have the funds to say. Do you want to put a school in here? I want to help you out. I said, okay. I called up Phil Varleese and I asked him, because I'm going to need help, and I asked him what he thought. He said, sure. So we went down, we talked to Dan. For the time being, he wasn't charging us, and we began the process of putting the school together. What we did was, and when you hear, these guys, I got to segue for 1 minute. The old days, you were told no matter what the promoter asks you to do, you do it. But like you said, at some point things changed. So the promoters were not worthy of making those kind of decisions unless their history trumps yours. And what I mean by that is if you're away from your promotion or you graduated from school and you're out there on the road and you think the promoter asks you to do something that goes against what you were taught or trained on, then you have to say to yourself, I either call my trainer and ask him, or I say to the promoter, listen, I'm not comfortable with that. It goes against my training. So I have to ask you this. I'll tell you who trained me. And if your training trumps mine, I still won't do it because I think it's wrong. If you're asking me to do something, that means your training definitely, or lineage or pedigree, definitely is not as good as mine. And that's the answer you give to these kids. No, you can't just say yes because some of these guys are idiots. So if you follow him, you're doing the same thing. So that's the way I like to gauge and look at stuff. Have a mind of your own and know that you have to look at where these people came from. That being said, I had two people, Diego DeMarco, who is a Pillman. I don't remember. I can't remember his first name. I don't know why. And the other one was, who White Lotus is? Pat DiGiacomo.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Tremendous talent. Do you know who he was trained by? They're both of them. They were trained by Noopy. You know who Noopy is? Heidi Lee Morgan's father.
Oh, okay.
Noopy trained many, many people for Vince's father. So, therefore,
right, he had the ring in his backyard, right? Like Raven and all those guys used to go there and take their bumps and.
I went there with Raven.
Right.
Yes, it was a chicken coop or something. I don't know. But the point is, you can't just lead yourself down a path by someone who doesn't deserve or doesn't have the background to tell you to do so. So that's the problem today, is the lack of, how come the trainer, nobody knows the trainer? Because he couldn't make it in wrestling, and that's why he's a trainer. Because he's not going to charge anybody much. He's not going to, make the guy that owns the school pay him. So you always got to look at where you came from. What does your training mean if it was done by somebody that doesn't have any background? And remember this: only perfect practice makes perfect. They say practice makes perfect. No, because if you're practicing something that's not right, it's not worth crap.
Right.
So, anyway, where we want to go from here?
Perfect crap. Let's see.
Exactly.
For the future, we went beyond there's a school that was around, like we say 2006, 2007. Was that 2009?
Yeah.
Okay. And then beyond that.
And we stayed there. I had left one of the closing school, not because it wasn't successful, but it was too much to have a promotion at school. It just didn't work. So we folded the school and we kept up with Force One until we decided to, end that. And then we began Coastal. Okay. And then Coastal went right up until, I don't know, I'm going to say 2013, maybe. We ran all over the place, used everybody. And I got to say this. What we did was, Phil and I, and Fred Rubenstein was involved. What we did was we looked around and said, hey, why didn't that kid whatever happened to him? Why didn't he go anywhere? I'll tell you why. The same thing prevailed on the crappy indies that happened in ECW. Politics. I feel that anyone who was held back or didn't go further than they should for any reason other than their ability, that's a diss. That's a bad thing to do to somebody because some people quit and never made it and their dream is not fulfilled. So what we did was we looked around and we found all these local talents that were underutilized because of some bull crap, but were very talented. So what we wanted to do was let's use the underutilized, the overlooked, okay, and let's put them in a spotlight. And what it did was it resurrected or made careers of guys that hadn't made it because what? Why didn't you make it? You made it with us. So instead of, trying to look for all these names, I peppered the shows with our trainees that were coming along that were at a point where they could work. And all of the little guys around, Joey Spades and the teacher, or whatever, Steve the teacher, and the names go on and on. And yet we had the best locker room. We had the most dedicated workers. And all because I did things that I knew were missing when I was coming up. Water in the locker room, protein bars, bananas. I would find one of our sponsors, that I went out with a walker to get sponsors when I had my hips done, okay? Up and down the sides of parkways putting out signs. That's the way you do it. Nobody had a two-sided vinyl sign advertising wrestling before we did. Nobody rotated the colors so everybody knew it was the same venue, but it's a different show. Okay, we did all those little things that made the best of a group of guys who didn't get used properly and now had a chance to have a say, and to really shine. And they did. And they were so dedicated to us and devoted to us that's what made Force One at the time. When we moved to the Elks in Bayville, we were now coastal. So we used some of the same guys and we ran up until, I don't even know now what it was, 2004, something like that, or 7, I don't know. And then I basically was done at that point, because I'm not training anybody anymore. We're not running shows anymore. And I gave it to Pillman or Diego, and it went south from there. A guy by the name of Johnny Calzone, took it over. Early days of Sammy Callahan, very disrespectful. The first thing they did was put up a poster or whatever that said "out with the old and in with the new," regarding us. Very hurtful, and it was at a time where I was going through a lot of stuff. And for the record, and I hope this doesn't, affect anybody that doesn't know this, but I have beaten the 3 Ds in my life. You know what that is? Drug addiction, diabetes, and depression. And I'm going to tell you, the most formidable foe by far is depression. Horrible. Just beat you down and people, it's bad. So, as far as, the business now, I've been only recently pulled kind of back in, and I'm enjoying it. And the best is yet to come because I'm working on a project that will be revealed shortly. And it's going to be some of the best thing I ever did with a person that is just the best person that could be to do this with me. So
let me ask you a question before you get into that, because we don't want to reveal anything.
No.
Exactly what year did you stop wrestling? And I know you had the hip surgery. Was that the reason why you stopped wrestling, or was it like what year did you stop?
I'll tell you the reason. My wife basically prompted me to get out. Now I'll tell you what happened. Jason, this is how it ended. This is notwithstanding the Tropicana. I was still active then. Around 2001, I was supposed to work for Jason up in New England. And it was that a week or so before, and I mentioned to my wife, don't forget, I got this weekend. She goes, please, do me a favor and don't go. I said, okay. I called Jason, and he was pissed. I said, I'm sorry, bro. I'm not coming. And it was a good time. And unlike a lot of guys, I have a pension. I didn't put all my eggs in one basket. and I can live. I'm retired now. I'm trying to enjoy my life. I just got to stay healthy. I got a few things I have to work on, but it was just to a point where what's the point anymore? I'm not going anywhere beyond this. I have a pension to fall back on. I don't have to wrestle. The worst thing in the world must be you have to do that. It's just got to be terrible. I mean, think about it. Who that wasn't a fan is wrestling? And if they are, those are the people we're having problems with. And that's why the business is where it is. Because if you're doing this for anything other than the love of it, you're lost. Okay. And you can't be as productive as a person who loved the business and has to get out at some point and can do so because he said, okay, you know what? I got my little piece of history. When I was that little boy living my teenage years in the black and white pictures of wrestling magazines and reading about guys, then meeting those guys, then them becoming my peers, okay, and then me following in their footsteps, I don't see anything better than that. So if you're in the business, here's a perfect example. A kid comes in the locker room, and he's going to use a cane. He's got a Singapore cane and has no idea who I am. Well, where did you get the idea for the cane? Who did you see use it? What? So, that's the reason that I knew that I had to move on because you'll agree that a lot of the people that we have problems with have not developed as human beings since then and are not likely to. Okay. We got out, we're alive, and the people that left there and are in our boat, all were people of good character and could not be involved in that type of environment anymore. Exactly. And that's why we're here, and we're loud and proud, and we're not going to sit by anymore and let you tell your lies and not give credit
or
where
leave
it's
us
due.
out.
Do I need the credit? Nope. I don't need the credit. Okay. But if it's going to continue and I now have a reason to put it out there so I can move forward with my next project, then it's got to be done. So here we are. You tell me where you want to go from here.
So just to close, because I think we've answered most questions from the chat by this time, so we don't have to make that a separate part here. Just to close, what are your feelings towards the current state of professional wrestling? How these new promotions are running on TV, how these people are trained or not trained, how some of them are actually not wrestlers or even were fans. They're just models, actors, actresses being trained a whole bunch of spots. People calling themselves hardcore who have no idea, and
No,
just give me a
I
feeling of how you feel about what wrestling has turned into compared to, what we were involved in so many years ago.
absolutely. And I have a few really, important things to say about that. Because I do watch enough, very little of the current product. And the way, why I watch very little is right away in almost the first two matches of I watch PCW a little bit and I watch a little bit of the new NWA, but that's not good for certain reasons. And I'll tell you this, we'll go back to when people said, now because of COVID, we have to work in front of no people. And somebody said that must be tough. No, it's not, because these kids were not trained to feed off of the crowd. If they were, they wouldn't have to lay out the whole match where they're going to botch half the stuff. Okay. So they're not feeding off of the fans. So it doesn't matter because all they want to do is get their 50 spots in, and the spots that they're getting in, listen, to get to the point of the high spot, if you forsake all the moves leading up to that, it means nothing, especially when you botch the high spot, right? Listen to this. I'm embarrassed because I sit in my room and I watch some of this wrestling, which limits me mostly. I go to YouTube and watch old stuff because it's horrible. All right. If you take an enziguri kick to the back of the head, which way do you bump?
Definitely, you definitely are not going to take a back bump.
Oh, yes, you are. On TV, you will.
Not now.
Yes, I see it all the time. Okay,
Oh, wait a
then
minute. Oh, they're taking back bumps?
back bump on an Insagiri. Yeah, more than one
Oh,
time.
see, I don't watch it, so I was just trying to make a joke, but you're
No,
serious?
this is
Oh,
serious.
okay.
All right,
I
here's
don't
the next one.
why I don't watch.
Here's the next one. You take the guy out of the corner, send him into the other corner, and you only take 2 steps. And it's supposed to be believable that this guy on his own is going to run the rest of the way by himself. You have to send him so far in that he has no choice. All right, here's the last one. Guy grabs a headlock, pulls the guy's head up, and talks to him. Now,
Yeah,
biggest,
I don't get that either.
the biggest question I have for you is how is AEW not the best product around? Look at who they got behind the scenes. Okay. If I was one of those guys, I would tell the guy locker room, if I ever see you pull a guy's head up and talk right in his ear, you're fired. If I
Yeah,
ever see
that's
you take
it.
it, you ever
That's
take
it.
it, you take it a bump the wrong way, you're gone. You expect that guy to run across all the way across the ring by himself, you're gone. Or Tom Latimer, good talent, new guy, NWA. The guy he's wrestling is going to do a spot up on the top rope, but you didn't sufficiently let the guy lay the guy out, which means he has plenty of recovery time, which means he has no reason to stand in the ring bent over, waiting for you to do your high spot move. It's
Still
insanity.
doesn't make sense so
But
much.
look, what's the answer? This is what people tell me. What's the answer that they have every major star from going back in the locker room? You know, you got Arn Anderson, you got everybody. I don't even know to what extent, but it's a bunch of guys. Now you tell me, do you think those guys are saying to themselves, let's just get a payday? No, they should be saying, they must be, but they should be saying, let's not only get one payday, let's make this product so good that we're going to continue to get paydays. Why is that not happening? Why don't they go to Tony Khan and say, if you want this thing to last, then we got to straighten things out. You know, we got to get these guys on track. It's too scripted. It's just not good. And when you want to go ahead and put, put all these spots together, and you're determined to get them in no matter what, means you're not listening to the crowd, and you should be listening. So if they're not liking what you're doing or the spots that you laid out, you can move on to something else. Manny would say to me, you know, I'll see you in there. He would say, get the finish together, get the referee, and then let's just go out there. So there's a lot of problems, and it's not getting any better. And it's embarrassing to sit in your room and watch it by yourself. That's pretty sad, you know.
Steve Lawrence just
So
brought up a good point, is that it's because writers have replaced bookers.
well, then you
And
know that's a
maybe
sad
a
thing
little
because
bit something to do with it. But, you know, there's
it
a
could.
whole big picture of what's wrong that, you know, it wouldn't really take
Well,
a whole lot to make the corrections, but they don't want to hire the correct people to make the corrections. So
yeah, and this whole 50-50 booking thing too. We experienced it on cards where the promoter was weak, and every guy that he had to talk to about a finish convinced them to do some kind of screw job finish. Nobody wanted to put anybody over, and you can't have that. That doesn't work, you know. So I don't know what the answer is, but I know I don't really see it getting any better. I see a lot of weak talent out there. But when you see somebody like Miranda Gordy, you have a little hope. You know, maybe she can have influence on these younger people to say, listen, this is no good. Here's the thing. In our day, you had to look like the regular people that shouldn't look like you. Okay. To separate yourself, wrestlers were always big, strong, and if they weren't, they were fit or had some other quality that was so unbelievable that it didn't matter. I knew I wasn't going to be 6 foot. So I said, well, if I'm only 5'9", I'm going to be as wide as I am tall, and nobody will be able to doubt my abilities or make little of my size. But if you're 5'8" and you're skinny fat and you have a rock t-shirt cut off on and a pair of shorts. So everybody's a martial artist. Who's you got kick pads and amateur shoes? I didn't see you throw one kick. If you can't invest in gear, coming up, I didn't have the money all the time, but my wife saw fit that if you're going to do this, you go spend what you need to look good. For instance, for Tommy Fierro for that show, I went out. I had pants made. I'm never going to use them again. But I'm in a position in my life that if I have to go somewhere, I'm going to put my best foot forward regarding this business. And I'm in a position where I can afford to buy those pants. I go out to these things, I usually spend more than I make because I'm going to get a new outfit. Look at me, I sound like a girl, right? I'm going to get a new outfit. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get that. And if you carry yourself that way, it makes a difference. If not, you're just like everybody else. And when the same person is making all the top people's gear, the ones that can afford it, they all look the same. They all look the same. Every type of pants and gear is a variation on the other, but there is hope. There is hope. Brody King, you know who he is?
No.
You know who Brody King is? Look him up.
I'm not current with wrestling.
That's an old school kid that can pull it off. There's a few people out there, but they need to pull everybody else up, and get everybody on track.
The thing is,
I don't know.
Some of these guys wanted to, try to dress the part of a tough guy and act the part of a tough guy when not one of them were actual tough guys. And I think the actual tough guys, probably disappeared within like the last couple decades or so. Mm-hmm. And you being one of those original real tough guys, not someone who's just going to like mouth off in a promo and then cry because, he got hit a little bit too hard. I remember seeing you take some hellish bumps and get, unnecessary crashed in the tables and breaking your tailbone and all that kind of jazz. Yeah. And, never was the type to complain about it. And these guys right now, they're not tough. They don't look tough. Like some of them are so skinny and they don't fit the part and they don't know how to act the part. They don't know how to cut promos. Most of them, there's very few that I've seen. When I did take a look, I don't watch it regularly, but I've taken a look enough to see, who I think has potential and who I think belongs in certain places. And it's not very many, and they are not tough guys at all.
They're not.
But I think with all this being said, we're about coming to a close. So I'm so glad that I did this as my first interview for Wrestling Rewind. I couldn't have picked a better person to have spoken to about all of your achievements and accomplishments, not only in professional wrestling, but in all the other areas of your life. Was totally fascinating. And you are definitely the type of person that the future of wrestling should be looking at as example of how they should conduct themselves as a professional in this business.
Yes, absolutely.
So, now this Panther Rodriguez says, Tommy was there when Taz threw me through the table on my head. We all took the hellish bumps like that. So is there anything in close that maybe we forgot to go over, or maybe something to put out there?
Because I can't at this point, go hurt too many people, especially my family. But there's so much more that would lend to my background that I have to kind of leave out. So people might have to read between the lines or get a hold of me if they want to hear other things. But I will say this, in life, especially in this business, rarely does the reality of a person live up to the legend. In my case, I'll tell you how I know this. I met a guy, I left the union for 10 years, and I went back right before 9/11. And I just gotten back, and I'm at the gang box, and a guy comes up to me, who I'm friends with to this day, and he says, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Mark Infazino. And I've heard a lot about you. Now, you got to keep in mind, I have my grandfather, my father, and my uncle all precede me. And a lot of times the child doesn't live up to it, right? And my father was a character. I said, Well, don't believe everything you hear, kid. Fast forward 20 years, we're drinking a beer at 6:30 in the morning because they were in the back cold before we go to work. And I said, we can do this. That's why we're doing it. I said, I want to ask you a question, Mark. I said, that day you came up to me and you told me, I heard a lot about you and blah, blah, blah. Let me ask you this. Knowing me now 20 years, right? Would you say that I lived up to that legend or I fell short? He goes, brother, it doesn't even scratch the surface of the reality of your legend. He goes, you're one of the few guys and you know how you know that? When people tell you things that happened that you don't even remember and they're outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
Just that's just my every things I did and things I went through. So the part that you said about the tough guy thing is that's why Paul never tried to stiff me on a payday. That's why there was only a few things said to me, but nobody really went too hard at me because the bottom line is I don't think there's anybody in that locker room in my peak that I couldn't have handled. And I think there's a lot of guys who fooled themselves or thought they were tough guys and were in complete, denial of the truth. So being a tough guy is more than, what you tell people. It's what people tell about you. I saw him do this. I saw him do that. The people aren't coming out of the woodwork just to tell stories about me. It's true. Last thing I got to tell you is, like, you ever watch Shameless? That show Shameless?
No, not too
All right,
much of a TV person.
here's what I'm going to tell you. Whoever wrote that either lived this life or knows somebody closely where you could say you have to have been there or been with someone else to even come up with something like that. And it's so outrageous, it has to be real. And I can compare it to him. So the William H. Macy, the main character, got drunk and ended up in Canada. So his family had to go get him. So they brought an RV and they stuffed him in the void in the wall, right? So he's in the dark in there. You see him in there, right? And he's looking around, he's feeling around, and he finds a bag full of pills, painkillers, right? So, of course, he opens it up, right? He takes a bunch. Then he's like, how am I going to take these? Water was dripping from up on the air conditioner, and he went like this.
Desperation.
I'm sorry, that you can't make that up. Somebody lived that or knew somebody that lived that.
I think we all lived that for a while.
Well, yeah, maybe, but not as many people as you think, you know.
Right.
Anyway, there's reality and there's embellishment. A lot of people like to embellish. I don't have to because people tell the story for me. I don't remember half the stuff. And that being said, I'm only talking about this. I would never claim to be a tough guy unless there were people involved, especially in that locker room, who thought they were. So obviously in my presence, they might have thought otherwise. Never got challenged. Paulie never sent anybody over to say anything to me. So I think he knew, and that's okay. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
And we talked about that earlier. But and I hope everyone has enjoyed the show here. I know I got to learn a lot about you that I previously did not know. And of course, what you went over that I did know, I enjoyed a lot. And I see that a lot of people have enjoyed it as well. And maybe we'll do this again and have you back and, part 2, replay.
Absolutely.
Are there any YouTubes or your Facebook? I know it's got you on suspension and everything. You're on Instagram and everything. Is that just at Thomas Cairo?
Yeah, I'm really not on much. I'm only on Facebook, and that's really about it. Unless somebody gets a hold of me, but I had to be prompted to get on Facebook, and the only reason I'm glad I did is it gives me a forum to say what I want to say, even if they suspend me, and it also reconnects me with the business and the good people of the business, like yourself, Steve Lawrence, Panther, whoever called in. These are the people that I still keep in touch with because they are of good character. The other people weren't, so see you, because unlike, I know I still have a long way to go. I know I'm still working on myself, but you know what? That's okay. At least I'm moving in that direction, and I'm aware that I have some things I still have to work on. But these guys, you look at them, they're at the shows, at these conventions. Most of them don't have much of anything else. Okay. So I have to feel blessed that I do. And I also have a significant little piece of wrestling history. And that's okay for me. But let's get it right, though. Okay. So let's get it right.
This time we'll get it right. So thank you again. Thank you to Tommy Cairo for this
Thank you.
wonderful interview. I hope everyone has learned enough now.
And
You know why you should be appreciating the Iron Man Tommy Cairo, the original tough guy, the inventor of the Singapore cane. I will go ahead there and say it. We've learned so much about you, and I hope that I could have you back on Wrestling Rewind for a little chit chat. Maybe
absolutely.
not
Anytime.
about someone else,
Anytime.
you know. And
Yeah.
until the next
And,
time, I love
I want to
to
say about a lot of those people.
take things back by taking people back. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
like yourself who have been in the business for a long time, who I've come up with, who I've worked in locker rooms, who I've worked with, sometimes haven't or not heard of enough. And a lot of people are
Yeah.
receiving lifetime achievement awards. And like I said, there's not a lot of people don't know why. So I
Yeah.
think that people should know why and have a better idea of who their past is and who their
Yeah.
legends are in the future.
Yeah.
So again, I hope you've all enjoyed the show, and we'll try to get back to you real soon with another episode of Wrestling Rewind. And until then, again, thank you so much for joining me, Tommy Cairo.
You're
And I hope
welcome.
you
And I
have
want to say this real quick. I want to say this
yes.
real quick. If there's anybody out there that has a response or a rebuttal to anything I've said, and I left a lot of people out without trying to be hurtful. That being said, anybody wants to call, get a hold of me on Facebook and wants to refute what I said, by all means, I'd love to. I entertain every opportunity.
And be sure that if you do have anything to say, that if you don't have the balls to instant message him, feel free to leave the comment under this video so that we could both see it. And we'll both
Absolutely.
have a response for you. So
Absolutely.
again, thank you so much for Tommy Cairo joining us
Thank
and
you.
just letting us in on his entire life. I've enjoyed this interview so much, and I hope to have you
Thank you.
back again. And until the next time, have a nice night and a nice life.
All right. Thank you,
Bye.
Angel. Much love.
Much love.
All right. See you later.
All right.